All right, so this is take two of World Thrift live. We've got Andy with Second Base Vintage that's going to be popping on. And this is just take two. We had a volume issue going on his end. And again, we're just waiting on Andy from Second Base Vintage to join in. Again, this is just a live podcast where we bring on other thrifters to talk about their brand, what got them started, basically their backstory. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm Nick Fanning. We've got my partner Alessandra there in the back. And so we are waiting on Second Base Vintage to request to go live with us, which he's about to do. Let's see if our work this time. And we are waiting to connect. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Let's see here. Andy, can you hear us?
Check.
Check. We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, it's really faint.
Really faint. Okay.
Not showing. Let me see if I have any headphones in here.
All right.
Cal, do you have any headphones?
So everybody that's just joining us, we've got World Thrift at the top. I'm Nick Fan, Alessandro, and on the bottom we've got Andy from Second Base Vintage. He is looking for some headphones so he can hear us a little better during the podcast. So bear with everybody joining.
Sorry, guys.
Hey, no problem.
Really weird. Can't hear anything. I'm going to try a different phone.
Okay, so let's see. What about now? We just adjusted our microphone. Can you hear us?
Let me see. All right, this one's better. I'm going to request
now? We just adjusted our microphone. Can you hear us?
Yeah, but I got to switch to a...
Okay. So disconnect from the primary phone. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so bear with us, everybody. We are looking to get Andy from Second Base Vintage on board so that way we can start the live podcast. And so we appreciate everybody's patience as we're working through these technical difficulties. Right now we are actually at our house, World Thrift, where we've got some of our grail pieces there in the back. But please feel free to ask us any questions. So any questions for myself, any questions for Alessandro, or any questions from Second Base Vintage. We are connecting now with Second Base. Can you hear us?
You.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So we are good to go. We are rocking and rolling. So Andy, go ahead and just introduce yourself. Your age, your brand. Talk a little bit about where you're at right now. The floor is yours.
Cool. Let me just, before I set the camera down, I'll do like a little tour of the shop, and I can talk to you guys at the same time. I'll flip this around because nobody really wants to see me.
So he's at the store right now. You guys say you're closed on Mondays?
Yeah, we're closed on Mondays, so this is kind of like, so this is the shop. This is the first floor.
Oh,
Second
cool.
Base. We're located in downtown Easton, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I gotta let somebody in.
That's a cool shop. I like that door, dude. That's a really cool door.
Holmes.
Dog.
That's the shop dog. That's Holmes.
Holmes, I love it.
Yeah, we got a little flip of him that my homie
Oh, okay.
did.
That makes sense. Okay.
So Holmes is usually here posted up.
What the backstory of that was actually. That's
So
cool.
Holmes is the shop dog, and we'll get into that one. But just figure I'd give you guys a little visual tour.
Awesome.
So we're a vintage shop here, but we also sell some brands like Pleasures, 10 Deep, Stussy. We also consign a little bit of Supreme and Palace and Bathing Ape and things like that. That's on the first floor. You know, try to keep some of the little collectibles that I've amassed from my childhood on deck. But we can go upstairs as well. Easton, Pennsylvania is the home of Larry Holmes, so we got to pay homage.
Okay, and that's why your dog's named Holmes, right?
Yes, if you'd like to think that. I'm a little bit more like Sherlock Holmes because of his color.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
But I should have put a fisheye lens on this. Here's the second floor.
This looks like there's a little bit more vintage on this floor.
Yeah, so this floor is all like our vintage categories. So right now, because it's about to get colder in Pennsylvania, we got our jackets out, from windbreakers to parkas. Definitely a collection of different tees. Got our little section here dedicated to Tommy, Nautica, and then over here, Polo.
Wow.
This is awesome, dude. This is really cool to see. Like, I really didn't know the shop was this big.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, I think that maybe there's a lot of businesses that are like that, you know, you can only post so much on Instagram.
Right.
But
right.
so we got little like a little Dragon Ball Z corner there. I got this trunk airbrush t-shirt done when I was probably like in 1994 when I was at the San Diego Comic Convention. We talk about
That's what I was
dress. Yeah, so we just try to keep it organized for the people that come through.
Right, for sure.
We got a solid women's section that my wife has curated.
Okay, cool.
So, you know.
It's clean. You probably got well over 1,000 pieces in the shop.
I think so, between all the T-shirts and all the little knickknacks and things like that. Oh.
The bag.
Gotta turn off Nintendo. Who knows how much longer that'll be running for. But yeah.
That's cool.
That's
You guys have a little bit of women's. That's cool. Not a lot of people actually carry too much women's. We carry a little bit. I would say maybe like 15 to 20% of our inventory is women. Okay. Which we like. It, you know, it brings the girls in as well. But some of the girls wear a lot of the guys' stuff too.
Yeah.
What would you say yours? Is yours about 20% or a little bit more even?
I would say that our women's section is maybe about, I don't know, it might be a little bit less than 20% when all is said and done. Right. But it's great. I mean, we have like women are the college students, the high school students that are out here in the tri-state area near us. Definitely come through. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Wizard Skull, but we have a little collection of his work. He's a good friend of ours. Check him out on Instagram.
Oh, man.
But yeah, this is all right. I'll let you back there to your bed so he doesn't keep whining throughout our interview.
Because I remember when we originally talked, you said you're like what, an hour, or was it 30 minutes outside of New York City?
Yeah, about like an hour and a half to get like from where we are right into the tunnel. And get into to Manhattan, about like an hour north of Philadelphia. Okay. So let me try to figure out where I can set the phone down, then I can flip it around. Sorry, I should have kind of taken the time.
It honestly gives some more people time to like hop on and stuff.
Cool.
Right now we're doing World Thrift Live. Up on the top screen, we've got World Thrift. I'm Nick Fanning. That's Alessandro Cacosa. On the bottom screen, we've got Andy with Second Base Vintage. And he's here to talk about about his shop, how he got into the thrifting business, and much, much more. And he's just giving us a little bit of tour of his shop, which is 2-story in Easton, Pennsylvania. It looks like a lot of dope shit that's in there, so definitely check him out.
And put clown down really quick and steal his chair.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we're actually going to take a couple of viewer questions a little later on in the show. So if you have any questions, go ahead and write them down for us or with Andy. We definitely want to hear from you. All right. So let us know when you're ready, Andy. We'll get started.
Cool. I'm good.
Okay. All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself, what your age, how you got into the thrifting business, and how long you have been in business.
Right on. So I am 37 years old. I got into this store. Second Base Vintage has been open for a little over 3 years now. I actually got into business back in 2002. I opened up my first shop. It's a skateboard shop called Home Base. On Instagram, it's homebase610.
Okay.
But that's of how I kind of just, got into being a business owner. I grew up in San Diego, California, and in '97, I was moved out east because of my father's job. So moving from San Diego to Pennsylvania was a pretty big culture shock. And at the time, like things that were common for skateboarding and skateboarding culture in San Diego, they really didn't exist out here in Pennsylvania. So yeah, '02 opened up the doors to Home Base Skate Shop in Bethlehem and kind of just been involved with skateboarding, streetwear, skate park advocacy, and just trying to just be in touch with our community for skateboarding. And in 3 years ago, we decided we wanted to expand into this area, downtown Easton. And I knew that I didn't want to open just like another skateboard shop. Like where we are here is only about, we're about 12 miles away from the skate shop. So it didn't really make sense to just open up another competing business of my own. So,
Right.
So when we opened up this shop, I mean, you see how big the space is. Like, I actually had no idea what I wanted to do with the space, but when we started, we always kept like a couple racks of vintage, like just stuff that I kind of thrifted on my own. And so we had a mixture of the skateboarding stuff, the streetwear stuff, and some vintage. And actually upstairs, we actually ran like a little flea market upstairs. So we rented out vendor space to people who, some people that were Supreme resellers, sneaker resellers, right. People that like other people that did thrifting on their own for different segments. So the upstairs that you guys just saw, like that was actually all like, it was our own little flea market. We called it the Easton Flea, and that ran for about a year. Right. And in that time, we started seeing the vintage attracting more and more people to the shop. So it just organically grew into a full-on vintage shop. We got rid of the skateboards and kept that at Home Base in Bethlehem. The flea market was awesome, but it eventually just kind of fizzled out where the vendors, they had other things to do. But I was psyched to see that our friends who were doing the sneaker consignment, they opened up a shop a couple of towns down. So now they have a full like reselling shop called Kicks the Habit. They're on Instagram under Kicks the Habit and Crazy Kicks is. So shout out to Izzy and the whole team there at Kicks the Habit. So they started off by doing pop-up shops, us being one of them, and now they have their own brick and mortar. A couple of the other people started their own businesses. So it was really cool to see how it all kind of grew. And then we eventually took over doing all our own vintage upstairs. And kind of going back to the original question about how we got started in vintage was we had the decision to figure out what we wanted to do with the space. And, we had the option to say like, well, do we want to go into higher end streetwear? Do we want to go into higher, more elevated men's apparel? And I just didn't really feel like that was for me. Like, that's not the kind of person that I am. I don't need more and more expensive clothing in my life. But I was raised, everything I had was secondhand. All my clothes were hand-me-downs from my brother or my cousins. my mom would take us to the thrift stores, and that's where we bought clothes. You know, I never went back to school shopping with like, hey, here's like $300, go get yourself new clothes at the mall. Like, that wasn't the way that our family was raised. We weren't poor, but my parents were always like conscious about like making sure that we were responsible with our money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm the same way, man. I've got 3 other brothers, and Dad was the only one working, so I feel you with the whole hand-me-down thing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Who's your partners? Who are you in this with?
This is me.
Just you?
Yeah, that's
okay.
okay.
Yeah, home base, when we opened back in 2002, those early years, I had a silent partner, somebody that helped with an investment. And, but then since then, like, we kind of split on our own on good terms. And I kind of run the shop with a solid team. There's a team of people, Josh Novak and Gil Bell, Betancourt, and they run the Bethlehem shop. And then it's like myself and my wife, Callie, and a really good designer locally named Armani that work mainly here, plus other people that have come and gone. So definitely all this runs with the help of like some really like good individuals that have good hearts to support this dream of ours. So
yeah, absolutely. You guys are doing a bang up job. I love what you're doing. I love the look of the shop. I love the products that you put out, and I think you're doing a bang up job.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So as far as kind of like getting into more of like the vintage thrift community type questions. So what would be your favorite brand? Like what do you want? Who is your favorite brand? Whether it's a designer, what do you think?
Vintage, like being that I grew up like kind of in the mid to late '90s. I always liked Tommy. Like growing up in Chicago, like in it, like when being in like high school, everybody would like we were about Tommy. Like there's definitely like love for Polo, and that was definitely inspired by Wu-Tang and listening to like hip hop like from that era. But I definitely gravitated towards Tommy. When I think about the closet that I had, like if I had a piece that I saved up for, it was definitely a Tommy piece, like a Tommy straight up embroidered spell out sailing jacket. So definitely on a vintage end, I really appreciate Tommy. As far as brands go, I mean, obviously like current brands, I mean, we carry Stussy, we carry Pleasures. I really like what those brands are doing, especially Stussy is like with its history in the streetwear market. I mean, there's people that resell Stussy as vintage. So I like how they've sort of maintained, their brand identity and kind of kept changing it up over the years. So I really like that. Me personally, like I'm not like a huge collector, but I appreciate anything that has good quality and construction, but then also they focus on like the feel, because I like to be comfortable. I don't really need big logos. Even if I found like a Tommy sailing or spell out jacket these days, like I wouldn't really wear it.
Or that minimalist.
Yeah, just try to keep it very minimal. And but I do appreciate making sure that like a t-shirt has a good feel, it has a good fit. It's kind of like what I look at, and vintage is nice like that. I mean, single stitch t-shirts, there's a reason why people really like those things, because they're more comfortable, they're softer. Like vintage t-shirts are softer, they're more comfortable, and I don't know. Sometimes sometimes when we're digging and I see one that I really like, it doesn't hit the shelves. Like I'll keep like a couple. I just kept like a 90s like Bulls versus Lakers like playoff T-shirt, double-sided with like Jordan and Magic Johnson on it. That was a good one. So that one definitely didn't hit the shelves yet.
So it looks like we've got a viewer question. So it looks like it's from Recycled Fire. It's for the both of us, but I'll ask you first. Has anybody stolen anything from you? I guess the question: have you ever been robbed for the rare pieces that you do have?
Are we talking like a literal? What do you think? A literal robbery? Like,
has your shop ever been broken into?
Yeah.
Oh, so not like this store hasn't, I'm going to knock on wood somewhere. Our other shop in Bethlehem, 10, actually, let me think. Yeah, about almost like 10 years ago, we opened up in our second location. So we started off in one that was like a tiny shoebox. And then after 6 years, we decided to move up the block into a bigger location. And like within the first like few days of us being open, somebody like kicked in the door and just like grabbed a bunch of shit and then took off. The cops found them, like, and it was a sad situation where it was a guy that was literally like a junkie that stole stuff and was trying to sell it so he can kind of, you know, score more drugs. That's definitely been the closest, or that's the only time that we've really been like broken into. This store, I mean, it'd be naive to think that somebody hasn't stolen something from us. I mean, we do our best with our staff to kind of make sure that we're providing good customer service to the people that come in.
Sure.
You know, it's a twofold thing. Like, you know, you give somebody good service and you build a rapport with them, like they're less likely to steal from you, and you also have your eyes on them. But I'm sure that something has walked out, and there's definitely been nothing like crazy that I'm like, holy shit, where did this piece go? But
Right.
also, you know, we strategize where we put like the more expensive pieces.
Yeah.
Not going to find like a crazy expensive like Harley Davidson like 3D emblem t-shirt just on the regular racks. That's going to be kind of kept somewhere a little bit out of hand, a little bit out of reach. So
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Recycle Fire, for the question. So this next one, you know, we kind of got into it. You know, earlier in your career, you did, you know, the flea market upstairs. Do you do any pop-ups? Are there any markets, you know, in the city that you're at, or at least close to it?
we've done a couple pop-ups. Like we are close to a couple different colleges. Lafayette University is the closest one to us. Where home base is Lehigh University. And so we've set up, like, if different students are putting on different events, like we've done different pop-ups. I haven't gone to like, you know, like a sneaker con or some sort of like vintage con to set up at an event like that. I think that our business and the way that we've set it up is a little bit different, where we're not only going after like, you know, your grail items, where our racks are filled with like rap t-shirts and things like that. I mean, I love going into those shops. It's just being where we're at in this part of Pennsylvania. It's not like, we don't have people coming in being like, cool, you got like an OG Wu-Tang shirt. Here's like $700 for it. Like, that's
Right.
not really like our marketplace. Easton is a community of, you know, some wealthy people, but then some also very, you know, like, you know, poverty line, like families and individuals. So when we opened up this vintage shop, it was to sort of cater to like the vintage crowd that can afford things, but also to have things that are affordable. So some of the pieces that you'll find on our racks are, you know, they're cool pieces. You can find jerseys for an affordable price. You know, we have, on any given day, you can go through our rack and find jerseys for $20, $25, $30, $35. And then there's going to be the couple, like if you really want a Rodman jersey, if you really want a Jordan jersey, like you might be paying 75, 100, 150.
Yeah.
We're not specialized, you know, where we're only looking for those very specific items. You know, when we find them, awesome. But, you know, I like to think of the store as being very like diplomatic for anybody that walks in.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So like with that being said, you're saying like a lot of the items aren't necessarily like the most expensive pieces, which is a lot of times good. Like I feel like that's what most people want. Like a lot of people don't wake up. Like what I tell a lot of people sometimes about some of our higher priced items is that, you know, like I didn't expect you to wake up and spend like $200 this morning on a T-shirt. You know, it's something it's like a planned purchase almost. But the $15 item, sure. The $5 item, sure. But kind of with you saying that, I want to bring up the fill a bag sale that you guys had. I thought that was pretty cool. We've done something similar to that. I've talked to a couple other people that have done it. But the one you guys had looked like really killer. You guys looked like you had some really great items in there, and it looked like you had a really good turnout. So kind of just run us through that experience and just maybe some of like the best items that were maybe in it.
Yeah, the filler bags have done pretty good. We're coming up on Black Friday again, and that's sort of the anniversary of when we did our very first filler bag sale.
Yeah.
It was just, I've obviously seen like other people do it. I have no claims to like at all being the person who thought about that concept, but it's a great way to like purge items that you might want to get rid of, and like anyone that sells vintage knows you have that stockpile of things that's like that came along with like bulk buys or something where it's like, okay, I bought these 10 items to get these 3 items that I really want. What do you do with those 10 items? So like anybody else, we do that. And that's how it started, was like, all right, let's just put this stuff. And like the first one was, we were totally caught off guard. I didn't expect people to camp out. I didn't expect to have a line in front of the shop. Like, and that's used to having lines because the shop in Bethlehem, we're a Nike SB account. We have been since 2002. So we've done Nike SB drops. So, having that culture of people lining up and camping out is something that we've been familiar with, but I didn't expect it for our filler bag sale. Really, the idea was, let's take this overstock, and maybe it's a way that people in our community that can't afford a lot of clothes can come and get a good deal. And, the first people in line definitely don't fit that category, but after a while, after like the lines die out, we do get people that are able to show up and fill up a bag. And, the last one we did, the last couple bins that we had that were just like leftovers, like we basically gave them all to like this family who was like, look, we're going to send this back to our family, like overseas, that need clothes. So, it's been cool to see that the filler bag sale is something that our community that shops with us is very stoked on, and they line up for, and super appreciate anybody that stood in line for like 3, 4, 5, 6 hours just to come in the shop. But I'm glad that it's able to do like that other thing as well. But yeah, we're gearing up right now for the next one for Black Friday, and hopefully,
Not a good turnout.
Another thing with that too, like you're saying, it's good to be able to give back to your community. I feel like I've seen a couple different stores do it, and I think I've seen you guys.
That's how it started, was like, all right, let's just put this stuff. And like the first one was, we were totally caught off guard. I didn't expect people to camp out. I didn't expect to have a line in front of the shop. Like, and that's used to having lines because the shop in Bethlehem, we're a Nike SB account. We have been since 2002. So we've done Nike SB drops. So, having that culture of people lining up and camping out is something that we've been familiar with, but I didn't expect it for our filler bag sale. Really, the idea was, let's take this overstock, and maybe it's a way that people in our community that can't afford a lot of clothes can come and get a good deal. And, the first people in line definitely don't fit that category, but after a while, after like the lines die out, we do get people that are able to show up and fill up a bag. And, the last one we did, the last couple bins that we had that were just like leftovers, like we basically gave them all to like this family who was like, look, we're going to send this back to our family, like overseas, that need clothes. So, it's been cool to see that the filler bag sale is something that our community that shops with us is very stoked on, and they line up for, and super appreciate anybody that stood in line for like 3, 4, 5, 6 hours just to come in the shop. But I'm glad that it's able to do like that other thing as well. But yeah, we're gearing up right now for the next one for Black Friday, and hopefully,
Not a good turnout.
Another thing with that too, like you're saying, it's good to be able to give back to your community. I feel like I've seen a couple different stores do it, and I think I've seen you guys do it, where sometimes just at the end of the night, you'll just leave like a bin of stuff out, or like a couple pairs of sneakers, and you'll be like, hey, free stuff, come get it.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, like it's very, if you ever came here, and this is like many other communities, it's very apparent how the contrast is, where you have people that have and you have people that have not. So when you open up a shop and you see different people walk by at different times, I mean, you can only want to give back when you can. And
For sure. And even beyond that, it's like a lot of times people hit us up even still to this day, and they're like, "Hey, I know you guys like do the whole clothing thing. I have like all these old sneakers." So a lot of times it's based on just the abundance. It's like people give us so much stuff that it's almost like what else am I going to do with it? Especially a lot of the stuff that doesn't fit within your niche or within your market or whatever. So we always, whether we're giving it to friends or sometimes we'll just drop it right back off at Goodwill. We always make sure that people can get it.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a quick viewer question. This one's from Brando Commando.
Yes.
He asked, what's the most unexpected obstacle when you were opening the shop?
Shout out to Brandon at Old Cheese Vintage. You gotta check him out too. He's the homie. The most unexpected obstacle. I mean, usually, like, definitely when you're opening up a business like a brick and mortar, going through the permitting process with a city is always a headache. You really have to be like on top of those kinds of things to make sure that, like, you open up a business in mind with a certain vision and things that you want to sell, but there's always that hidden thing that you're like, what do you mean? Like, I need like a drinking fountain or 2 public bathrooms, in my store. Like, that was actually something that we dealt with in this shop. We had to kind of really like go after the mayor, and we had to rally some other small businesses around us because they were trying to tell us that to meet codes, we had to have a public drinking fountain in this shop.
What?
I no idea. Like a ADA compliant drinking fountain. No idea where that came from. I've never been in another retail shop that had a drinking fountain that anybody can just walk up and like fill up their water bottle or something like that. Yeah. Really, that's the only thing that comes to mind when opening up any kind of business is having either having somebody like on your team that can help you with that kind of stuff, or just really being on top of it. Vintage wise, more specifically, I think the challenge for everybody, brick and mortar or not, is, sourcing. That's everybody's constant, struggle. Or you either have like your plugs, or you have your own methods, or you have your own, secrets to it, like sourcing and making sure that you always have something that somebody else wants.
Right. And it's a balance, kind of goes what we were saying earlier. You could buy something that, you thought was the greatest, but it's sitting in inventory for the next 12 months. And, it goes to a balance of knowing your market, knowing your customer, and, finding that piece that's going to hit. And quite frankly, we've got bags to close that we thought were going to hit that didn't, so it all goes back to knowing your customer.
Yeah.
But so let's see here, kind of moving right along here. So you've had the shop for 3 years. What is your long-term goal with the shop? Are you looking to open up a new shop in a new city? You're looking to stay put? What are your goals for this?
I mean, when I think about my short-term and long-term goals, I think about like both businesses overall. It's not necessarily just focused on this one.
Right.
Short-term goals. We've been involved with teaching skateboarding lessons in some of the schools in our community, like after-school skateboarding programs. So right now, if I have a short-term goal that's next on my list, is really developing those programs to hit more schools, and then also offer, the lessons are for like underserved schools, where a lot of the kids that we teach are kids that like never had like the ability to buy a skateboard, or like their parents wouldn't buy them a skateboard and the helmets and everything. So they see it, but it's just, maybe it's never been accessible to them. So we bring the program, ramps, skateboards, helmets to these schools, and we teach the kids like the basics of skateboarding. And we've definitely had like the opportunity to work with sponsors in our community to donate skateboards to those kids as well. So that's definitely the short-term goal. It's not vintage related. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, building that is definitely something that we're trying to do. long term for the shop, it's not. I don't think that I have any desires to open more vintage shops. But I mean, obviously, continuing to grow this one. But I, if we can, like this area, Pennsylvania, the tri-state area, being so close to New York City and Philadelphia, I mean, we're in a great location, and like real estate is cheap here. So if I ever have the ability to do some sort of wholesale operation on top of having a retail operation, I'd love to do that. I'd love to be able to try to get more into the wholesale aspect of things. I mean, seeing like F as in Frank do it up in Canada, and I think that's a really smart move on their part.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just talking to you, I mean, you sound very confident in what you're doing. You're very articulate. You know what you want to do and how to get there, and it's just impressive. I love the idea of having the skate camp in a sense. Alessandro's, he's always wanted the opportunity to do a surf camp. It's really cool to just, the skills that you learned as a kid and you are now, and you're able to teach somebody else that, hey, you know what, you don't have to be, a gangbanger. You can be, focusing your energy in other things, and that's awesome. I really like that about you.
Yeah, thank you. Surf camp would be really cool. Yeah, you guys are down in Florida, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we're on the Gulf Coast, though, so there's not like we don't get waves too often here. On the East Coast, they do a lot, but yeah, I was thinking about potentially doing it like in another country, maybe like Costa Rica or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
do it in
once we have
Southeast.
we'll send you a free week pass or something.
All right, so we got another viewer question from Currency Acquirer. So how do you decide on the shoes to carry at second base? It says your selection is pretty small, so how do you decide on the shoes you carry?
Another local Currency Acquirer. What's up? We basically I know that there's it's a pretty big trend for vintage shops to be heavy into Supreme, and then also selling Jordans and all those kinds of things. I don't really I'm not a sneaker collector. I've never been a sneaker collector. I've only ever owned one pair of Jordans in my entire life, and it was in 7th grade. My grandparents bought them for me when they came to visit. Being a skateboarder, you're just tearing through your shoes. Right. Even at the height of the craze, and we had the SB account, I rarely held shoes for myself, oh, this is my collection. I held on to a couple because I knew that it'd be a nice resale later down the line. So as far as the shoes we carry here, I like to find things that sort of fit the aesthetic of the shop. So let me just. So for me, I picked up these structures. These are the shoes that I like. I love that they put out Spiridons. I mean, those are reissue ACGs.
How many pairs of sneakers would you say you have in the store total?
Barely any. This is what you see is kind of what we have for sneakers. We sell Vans here because obviously we have the skate shop and we have the Vans account.
Nice.
I'll sell what people will bring us to consign. Obviously my homie own the best, in my opinion, the best sneaker reselling shop, Kicks the Habit. And it's not, I respect what they're doing. So I'm not aggressive about sourcing and buying and reselling sneakers and working plugs to buy out whole size runs. So we're selling Yeezys or Jordans before the drop. It's, again, the same reason why I didn't go into high-end men's fashion with the store is the same reason why we're not super aggressive about sneakers. We keep a couple on there because if people come in and say hey, I want to consign these with you, we do we work it out where we try to get consigners the best possible price for their shoes. If they come in and say hey, I want to make $100 off of these shoes, we do what we can to get that person $100. So whether that's telling them look, if you want to sell these for $100, that's pretty high for that shoe, and we're gonna have to take our cut out of that. or we tack on, you know, $20 on top of that and we sell that shoe for them. So for me, the shoes bring people in, but it's not the focal point of my business. So we kind of have them out there just to attract people in, and then we let them know, like, yeah, we're a vintage clothing store, and that's what our main focus is. Same thing with like the Supreme stuff. 90% of the Supreme and Palace and Bape and all that, it's all consignment, because that's how we work with our community. And I feel like we give people really good consignment terms. We work hard to make sure that they're happy, because the more they bring us, the more people that check it out, like, it's better for us, and it's no money out of our pockets.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
That's the same way we do it with ours as well. And with the sneakers especially, because I know a lot of people, like even one person asked this, is, you know, what's the deal with them? And I've always felt like they're kind of like a higher investment, to be honest. Like whenever people try to like sell us their sneakers, I'm always so much more willing to be like, yeah, we'll take them on consignment, as opposed to buying. Just I don't know. I don't know if we don't have the market for it or what, but I think some stores in some areas do, and
everything. Yes, if you curate that following in that market, if you work hard to build up that market and you invest in it, like, you'll have success in it. It's just, again, like, I try to like do things that I'm passionate about or that I'm psyched on at the end of the day. So to deal with sneaker resellers day in and day out, like, I respect that hustle, but it's that I'm not personally interested in. So consignment is the best way that we can work with somebody. And how we choose to consign things, going back to Currency's original question, is if it's in good condition, if the person wants a reasonable price, be more than happy to do it. But we try to keep things that have a vintage aesthetic. So a lot of times when people will bring us like newer, like LeBrons or Kobe's, like, or foams and things like that, like, I'm not so much into that. I'd rather consign people's, you know, Air Maxes or classic Jordans and things like that, because I feel like it fits the aesthetic of the store more. So again, I always try to put people in the right direction. If they have like a collection of foam posits they're looking to unload, like, that might be something where you're gonna get a better price at the sneaker shop, you know.
Cool. All right. Well, actually, let's talk about this real quick. Let's talk about I think it was wasn't it the same day as the Philibag sale when you guys had ASAP Bills and like the Disco Inferno pop-up, or was that like all in one weekend? Or?
So it was supposed to be all together. Bills actually had some other things going on, so he couldn't make it out for that. But he did still donate some Disco Inferno t-shirts for us to raffle, so they were part of our raffle. Oh. I just saw him in New York last week, and, you know, we're kind of going back and forth to try to figure out when we can do some sort of like Disco Inferno event out here for the brand as well. So it didn't happen at the Philibag sale, but we're still trying to work on it. And definitely, like, he's a solid individual. So I'd be happy to like work with him when it happens.
Yeah, man, I've been following him. He's fresh, man. That's all. I love his style and everything. And I saw that he's got like the brand now and whatnot. So when I saw you guys were doing that, I was like, that's super sick. So yeah, well, whatever. I mean, bright side of that, if you guys get it rescheduled, keep us in the loop. Maybe we'll make a trip up there for it. It sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we've got a couple other questions here. All right. So how is Second Base affiliated with Home Base? Are both the owners? Yes. That quick answer to that question, T Sullivan 9. He is the owner of both Home Base and Second Base Vintage. And so you're very busy. You've got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, a lot of back and forth.
Absolutely. And so I got one more question here. You know, like, what would be your biggest pet peeve when dealing with customers or, you know, consignees? What would be your biggest pet peeve with that?
I definitely do not, like, with customers, I definitely subscribe to, you know what, as much as you can, you give good customer service to a fault. You know, like, at no point should we ever, like, if we're a brick and mortar retail business or even online through the DMs, be disrespectful to a customer. Like, you know, like what they say, like there's no dumb questions. Like to me, like that's good customer service. Is like if somebody asks you a question that like you in your mind you might think is dumb, it's like you just answer them, because in the end, like, you know, you're trying to build like you're not in competition with them. Like you're not trying to prove that you're smarter than that person or that you know more than that person. Like there's people that are getting into the vintage game who genuinely love it, and just, you know, they just don't know as much yet. So I try not to, like, I feel like I try not to have pet peeves when it comes to customers, just because, you know, that's who's paying, like, that's who's buying things from you. So even if I did, like, you know, I won't speak on it because obviously we have customers that are like tuning in to the.
Yeah, I'm not looking to single anybody out. You know, but it's just a fun, quirky question to kind of put the customer on the spot as opposed to us being on the spot.
I do have one for sellers though. When you're dealing with people that you're trying to buy things from, to me, it's like if you reach out to somebody and you want to sell something, you should have your price and you should know the value of that item.
Sure.
If somebody reaches out like, hey, do you want to buy this? And my question back is, well, what are you looking for? And they're like, well, what would you offer? Like, that is definitely a pet peeve, because it's like, well, I didn't seek you out for this item. If I'm seeking somebody out and I DM somebody or ask somebody like, hey, I want to buy this from you, I will make an offer. But if I'm not the one reaching out and if I'm not asking about it, like you should have your number of how much you want. Like, so you should do your due diligence to say like, look, I'm trying to get this much for the piece. A lot of times, like especially with the supreme resale culture and the sneaker culture, when people are trying to sell you things of that nature and they think that you're going to pay the resale price,
sure.
You know, where, oh, I see these selling on eBay for $100. Like, hey, would you buy this for $100 from me? Like, again, like sometimes, like, again, it might go back to somebody who's just learning the game, but it's like, well, if you're going to sell it to me and I'm going to do the work to reselling it, if there's no money in it to be made by me, like, why do you expect me to put money out for it?
Right.
So when it comes to sellers, that's pretty much my only thing is know the value of the item that you're trying to sell if you're going to reach out to somebody to sell it. And at the same time, also, like, don't expect somebody that's reselling to pay resale prices, because that means there's no margin. Like, if you come to me with a price that's like, hey, you're eating and I'm eating, like, let's do it. That's business. Like, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for the advice. I don't have any more questions. Do you have any more questions you would want to ask?
No, I think that's all of them. All right, man. Well, yeah, we appreciate your time. If you guys don't already, go ahead and give them a follow. We're going to go ahead and upload this to YouTube as well, so we'll send you the link to that. You can go ahead and share that with everyone as well. But yeah, guys, thanks again for tuning in. We'll keep you posted on the next episode, and then again, this will be on YouTube here shortly.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you back as far as like a follow-up.
Cool, yeah. We'll stay in touch. Definitely let you know if everything works out with Ills for another in-store event. But yeah, you guys, this is awesome, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. We'll let you know when we're up in the area, and we'll come by the store.
All right.
All right, man. Take care. See ya.
Later.